Hey Trailblazers and Tarmac Tacklers, welcome back to the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast. This is your one-stop shop for everything ultra, road and trail running.
And don't forget, we've got all your off-road adventures covered too.
And I'm your host, Nick Hancock, Head of Coaching here at Maximum Mileage, here to deliver pro advice, humour and inspiration for those of you tackling marathons and beyond.
And I'm Faye Johnson, your co-host. I am also a certified running coach, personal trainer and the resident mountain goat. Whether it's road running or ultra marathons, we've got the tips and tricks to get you through your training.
Exactly. Whether you are squeezing miles into a busy schedule or just dipping your toes into long distance running, we've got your back. So lace up, gear up and get ready for maximum mileage. Let's get into it. Hey Trailblazers and Tarmac Tacklers, welcome to the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast. This is your one-stop shop for everything ultra, road and trail running for busy people. I am your host, Nick Hancock, a certified USCA ultra running coach and UK athletics coach in running fitness. I am here to answer your questions and provide a little bit of humour and inspiration for those tackling marathons and beyond. So whether you're squeezing miles into a busy schedule or just dipping your toes into long distance running, I have got your back. Prepare for some laughs, learning and a few colourful words. So lace up, gear up and get ready for maximum mileage. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Hancock, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Faye Johnson, who is a fellow coach at Maximum Mileage. And we are today very extremely fortunate to have a very special guest with us, Jo Smith, who is a woman that has not only pushed her physical boundaries by conquering marathons and ultramarathon races, but is also committed to helping others reach their potential despite their health challenges. She is an experienced nurse with 25-year tenure in the NHS, which is very lucky because it's 75 years of the NHS this month, so great timing to have her on as a guest. She's been dealing with chronic pain for 15 years following a car accident, and instead of letting this stop her, she has turned to running and has since completed some extraordinary feats, including her first official 50-mile ultra at the GB Ultras Pennine Barrier and securing third place in her first 100-mile at Endure 24. In addition to achievements as an athlete, she has channeled her knowledge and experience in coaching, not running coaching, but we'll talk about that in the podcast. She has a very solution-focused approach to helping people run based on thought process, motivation and possibility. And recently, she's begun coaching people, specifically people who deal with health issues and injury, to realise their possibilities and go beyond their limits. So joining us today, let's give a warm welcome to our extraordinary guest. Let's get into it. Hi Jo, nice to meet you.
Hi Nick, thank you for having me. I'm really privileged. I'm just so happy that I got this opportunity so soon after meeting.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's been lovely talking to you over the last few days, and your story is unique, and people you help and the way you help them, I think, is really unique as well. Before we got on to chatting just now, we were talking about how Faye and I coach in a very traditional sense in terms of, we help runners very much with, we talk about physiological adaptations and, the way we structure training plans and things like that. But you work with runners in a very different way, don't you? Why didn't you sort of set the scene for us a little bit around how, what it is you do and how you got to it?
Yeah, of course. So I think it's good that I'm getting the chance to actually describe this, because this is something I've had a difficulty explaining since I began working in my area of coaching. Because I was saying, like before, a lot of my clients initially, they actually get confused and they think that I'm going to give them the answers. I'm going to tell them what to do. I'm going to give them the plan and say, go away and do this. And they're going to go away and achieve their first marathon. And in all honesty, when I signed up my first client, that's exactly what he initially believed. And I did think at first, I wonder how I'll get on in this area. Like, will it be what people want? Will they go away and then think I'm not signing up to that because I want someone to tell me what to do? And I was absolutely amazed because he really liked the concept and he signed up straight away, which made me feel really, really good. And And fortunately, it's actually worked really well, this type of coaching that I'm doing. And even I, in the beginning, when I first started doing it, I wasn't sure whether it would work and whether it would be what people wanted. But the more that I've done it, the more I've realised that there is a demand for this type of coaching, especially for those that don't like being told how to do things, that don't want to be told to do things in a certain way.
Nobody likes to be told what to do.
So basically the type of coaching that I do, it's really powerful, it's magical, it's basically conversations, and the way that you have the conversations is the way that you ask questions in a particular way that really open up a person's mind to different possibilities, different ways of doing things they've never considered before. You can have quite a lot of fun with it, be really creative, and you can really use a lot of visualization about when you're already there, like how did you feel when you got there, what did you do, what kind, you can kind of move forward in time and know the answers. It's just really good fun, and it allows a person to then take ownership of their plan. So we really spend a lot of time together, really, really talking through exactly what is it that you want to achieve, like really crystal clear, plan it out. What exactly do you want? Why do you want it? Like, what's the reason why you want it? Because for a lot of people, without that good reason, then they'll never get it. And also we look at the beliefs, like how much do you believe it's possible for you? So we can look at confidence and lots of different strategies on how we can get a person to be more confident. It might be that they've got some beliefs about themselves that are quite often, with one of my first clients who I signed up, he had some beliefs about that his calf was going to pop, and it was really limiting him from being able to increase his mileage over 5k. He was stuck at 5k. It just had, I were a bit surprised at the beginning about some of the things that we could work on that were actually stopping him from progressing and achieving what's been on his bucket list for years and years and years. He's been wanting to do a marathon, and he'd been struggling with knee injury. He'd needed to have surgery on his knee, and he'd had an issue with his calf in the past and issues with his knee. And we really went to town on what he would believe in. And that's the joy of this type of coaching, is that you can really challenge a person with what they believe in, and they even go away laughing at themselves, thinking, I can't believe they didn't even know they were thinking in that way. And sometimes it can be really, really a breakthrough, and it can be something as simple as that, what somebody needs just to then go away and think, oh, I can go beyond 5k. And believe it or not, going off on a little tangent here, but only 8 weeks later, he already achieved his first 15 miles run. So, and that was only 8 weeks ago, a person that was scared to go above 5k because they had this belief that their calf couldn't handle it and that it would pop.
How did that person, what led them to believe their calf was going to pop? And what, it was you said he had a knee issue and then potentially some calf issues prior to that. But how did you go from, I guess, having in your mind that maybe it's going to pop? Did he have a sensation that he felt like it was going to pop, or was it purely just in his head?
Yeah, so he kept getting pain in his calf. And in the past, he used to be a goalkeeper, and he'd had an issue where his hamstring had actually ruptured at one point. So he had experienced something quite similar. So that must have been there in his subconscious mind. But at the time, he wasn't even really aware that he had that belief about his calf. It was only when we had the conversation about what part of his is holding you back on, we kind of revealed that it was this belief about the calf. And again, it can be quite difficult, especially when you're from a background in nursing and you kind of do know you can give some advice sometimes if it's right for the person. So I kind of ask, in the way that I'm asking the questions, is how do you think you could prevent your calf popping? What could you do? It's a lot of the way that you ask the questions. It allows them to come up with their own unique answers and releasing their own inner wisdom. So it's kind of really clever, because quite often I can ask a question in a way that I'll get them to give the answer that I might believe is a good answer. But because he went away that week with a goal that he'd set that would have been there was no way in a million years I could have come up with that plan for him about what he needed to do on that week 1 of his coaching. And he went away with his own plan that he'd come across to do stretches, to do specific calf stretches, which again, I knew nothing about. I didn't know what the stretches were or how to describe how he should do them. And that was his own answer. And that was the week one. But genuinely, 8 weeks down the line, he's done his 15 miles run. And I got a text message to say that it was a trouble-free run. I was absolutely amazed. I was so happy to read the message just to let me know how he got on with that when we look back over the weeks. So yeah, that was just a quick example really about that.
Yeah.
It genuinely is the power of the conversation about getting someone from being somewhere where they feel really stuck and they don't know what to do next or how to go, where to go, to then building the plan bit by bit. And it tends to happen week by week, just really, really small goal every time, which then creates a massive, massive success in the long run. It may only take 8 to 12 weeks to get to where they want to be.
Yeah, no, it's interesting just thinking about how to. I've mentioned this before, the whole mindset thing within the running world. You know, we talk about it as coaches all the time, but I think to a lot of us, it's still a bit of a dark art in a way. And I've got runners, you know, that I work with. I've got a real example of one of my runners who she's more than capable of a 125 half marathon. You know, she's a fast runner, but there's just something that's stopping her in her mind from believing that she could go from 130 where she is now to 125. And there's something I've experienced personally in the past, like with running a 5K race, and you start doubting yourself that actually, you know, in the last couple of kilometers, I can't keep up with that person in front of me, so I'm going to drop back. And that's not really a physical thing. Actually, it's in your mind, and you're telling yourself that you can't do that. And it might sound crazy, but I have worked with people and do work with people that have those doubts, that do say to themselves, I'm not good enough to run this particular pace or keep up with that person. And it is that we are still in that. I think, you know, some of us who we talk about those physiological adaptations, and, you know, particularly with the example that you gave, the guy with the calf issue, my first thoughts would be, you know, how do we help you on a physiological level rather than a mindset level? So it's really interesting to hear that approach of going at it from, you know, the mindset, you know, what helping them to come up with the solutions. I guess my question from that though is, you helped that person with his calf and he went away to, you know, think of the solutions himself. Did he, at any point, sort of consult with perhaps, you know, like a physiotherapist or a strength training coach? Because that's the first thing that comes to my mind. I don't know about you, Faye, but, you know, something like they've had problems with their calves in the past. I'd be thinking strength training straight away.
It's interesting when it comes to that, because what you've said, and I wonder if I'm talking down the right line, Joe, but about you're almost dealing with a trauma response to the calf or the hamstring. He's got this association with, when I do physical activity, bad things happen, like I have a muscle strain or a tear. And then it's like a association, and he assumes every time this bad thing's going to happen. And that's what it's like. Am I right in it's like dealing with a trauma? So you're kind of unpicking that association he has with those series of events.
Yeah, that's it. And what we did was we actually worked through his strategy for when he gets pain. So I used a different technique as well to really help him with changing what he believed about this fear of the calf popping. And we used another example of another time in his life when he'd been in pain with another situation. And at the time, he picked out his surgery when he was recovering from the knee surgery. And what I did was we talked in quite deep detail about what he did and how he handled the pain and the strategies that he used. And then I unpicked it and we wrote a bit of a pain strategy for what he would then do if a similar situation were to happen with his calf. And that really helped him with the steps that he would take and what he would do. And we picked out a situation where things turned out okay and he did recover and get through the surgery afterwards. And that worked quite well in this particular case.
And going back to what Nick said about, you know, we often think, oh, well, if you've got a problem with this muscle or you've pulled a muscle or there's a muscle strain or a weakness, there's a physiological thing you can do to make that better. Do you find when this guy you were working with, when he was quite proactive once he realised what needed to be done and took control of that recovery pathway, did he then start to associate, because rehab is painful, isn't it? It's often a really uncomfortable situation to be in. But did he start to associate the differences in pain and almost, if you could categorize pain for recovery versus acute accident pain, if that makes any sense at all?
So did he recognise the difference between having the acute issue where it's happening in the moment when he's run so far and all of a sudden he can feel it niggle him, and then that niggling feeling was worrying him, compared to when he'd had the surgery? And you know what the strange thing is, when we talked through it in more detail, he said when he'd had the surgery, he pushed through a lot worse. And it actually then helped him to feel more confident about the feeling that he was getting in his car. That helped him to push through. But when Nick asked about the physiotherapy and all of those other specialist interventions, he's not needed to do anything like that since he started working with me. But before he worked with me, he did see physiotherapy. So he had already been shown different exercises for strengthening those different muscles. So he's not actually needed to have any other intervention, and he's getting through it, which is amazing. It's a bit like me with my issues. Over the years and years and years, I used to go to physiotherapy and acupuncture and chiropractor, but for a lot of years, I've not seen anyone anymore because I've learned how to do all those things for myself. So since I started doing ultra running, I've not done any physio or anything anymore, which a lot of people find a bit unusual.
I was at the physio.
I find that fascinating. That is just incredible. And I mean, if you're happy to do so, how have you worked through that process? From, as Nick mentioned at the beginning, you live with chronic pain. And how did it begin? What was that catalyst to begin dealing with the pain proactively and discovering running and what the power of what it did for you?
Yeah, I'll fill you in on a little bit of the background story. So when I first had the car crash, my son, he was only 1 year old. And at that point in my life, I didn't do any running. I wasn't a runner. I've not even been introduced to the world of running. He's 15 now. So he's 16 nearly. So that's why it's nearly 15 years since the car crash. So at the time, I was at university. I was doing my health visiting training. So I was big specialist public health nursing, working with families that have got children under 5, from pregnancy to 5. So I was at university for a full year studying whilst looking after a 1 year old. And I had the car crash 2 weeks into the course, and I got quite badly twisted in the accident to the point where I hit my head and my ear popped. I did go to hospital and they checked me over and said, "You're good to go. Send me home with a whiplash leaflet." And I trusted that I'm good to go and go get on with life and keep moving. That's what's good to do. So being a nurse, I agreed with everything. I believed everything. And I was like, brilliant. I'm just going to go get on with it and I'm going to be fine. And then as time went on, the pain never disappeared. It was really in the right side of my neck and the left. As time went on, it became the bottom left of the back as well. And I always thought that it was because the referred pain. And I was studying all year, so I blamed it kind of on myself for being sitting at a computer and doing a lot of study. And then as time went on, the year passed, another year, I then had my daughter. And when she was born, it got worse than ever. Like, I'd never got rid of it. And I was constantly taking pain relief every day, constantly asking, can I see a physio, getting referred. And again, just never got any better. And then when I had my daughter, I had an umbilical hernia also. So that then made it more complicated, because then I had people saying, oh, it's because your core's weak. It's because you've got a weak core because of your hernia. So long story short, but when I had the hernia operated on, which was literally about 10 years ago now, I met a woman who I was working with at the time in health visiting, and she'd done the 10-week Run England, the beginner's running course. And she was really, really like looking brilliant, really excited, really passionate. And she was like, oh, you should join this. You'd absolutely love it, Jo. It'd be brilliant for you. And I'm thinking, I can't run more than a few minutes on a treadmill. I'm riddled with pain. I'm just struggling from day to day. I can barely even do my own cleaning my house. I'm just getting out of bed. I can barely move every morning, looking after the kids. It was just a really tough time. And when Marie said to me, you should go for it, I thought, well, I'll just need to wait until it's been 3 months, they told me, from the surgery, before I could start getting active. And I'd always been active, but doing other kinds of sports, doing roller skating, doing anything else, Zumba, dancing, you name it, at the gym. But yeah, I could barely stay on the treadmill for more than 5 minutes because it bored me. And then I did the 10-week beginners program, and I just noticed that it was helping. It really did help me with like just feeling. It actually was the only time that I had a break from being in agony. Maybe it was the distraction. Maybe it was just that I was in a different kind of pain. And then that kind of just, as years went on, got more and more and more. And then probably about 5 years on into that is when I did the coaching training. So I did the coaching training in 2018. And then all these new skills and strategies that I'd been taught, that I was practicing with other people. And I became my own first client. And I just couldn't help but then sharing and spreading all my experiences with everybody that I came into contact with, that literally lots and lots of people will join me on my journey. And when I was thinking about this, a lot of my friends then came along and did the 10-week beginners running course, and people just wanted to do the same. And yes, so running were a big help for me with helping to deal with pain. I'd been sent everywhere. I've had in the past numerous procedures for, they call it radio frequency nerve ablation, where they destruct the nerves in your spine. And I've had that done numerous times in my neck and back. And again, it doesn't last forever, it wears off. So movement's
you're nodding away there, Faye, like what this is.
Similar.
It's a very interesting one, because chronic pain is, I think, something that has become, I don't know what the right word it is to use, but it's become more and more prevalent, particularly due to trauma, like car crashes and illnesses, acute illnesses. And what you're saying in regards to that kind of, the movement was the release of the pain. Like you say, is it a distraction, or is it that, as we know, movement is medicine? It's such a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And it is what we were designed to do. We were designed to move. And by moving, we basically utilize our bodies for what they're intended. And I think, what you're saying is really interesting, because I personally, have long COVID and have had a similar journey back to running since 2020. And you're referencing to that kind of consistent pain and not really being able to attribute it to anything in particular is one of the most frustrating things I've ever encountered, because you cannot pinpoint where it's coming from, what it's, and like you say, you try all these different methods and approaches. And interestingly, just like you've said, I found as my running mileage increased, I started to feel better and felt better for more movement, even though I thought actually I shouldn't be doing that, because I've been told I shouldn't be exercising too much because it's a detriment to what I'm recovering from. You don't want to push it too much. You might not run like you did before you had COVID. And yeah, it's such a fascinating kind of response to that kind of pain and how it helps. It really does make a difference to how you feel on a daily basis.
I know there will be people that will be listening to this that won't have experienced this. So this will all sound like almost like hoodoo voodoo in some respects to them. It's like, what are these people talking about? But there are going to be lots of people that will relate to this. And there are people that I coach. I've got a guy called Marcus who you won't mind me mentioning because he's written a blog for my website about it. But he runs with ankylosing spondylitis, which is a back disease. And there are times where he is in excruciating pain, but running has been his medicine for a long time. He's a very fast runner, and to be able to run as fast as he does through the pain that he experiences is quite something else. But it's almost like he uses it to as like a catalyst to perform the way he performs. And I know there will be lots of people out there listening that do go through some form of pain or trauma. I started running for mental health reasons. I still run to this day for my mind. My ass just follows. That's it. But it has been, my medicine as well. So I know there will be plenty of people that will relate to this.
Joe, when it comes to helping people to enjoy an active running again, if they have experienced an injury or an illness that means that they're returning back to an activity or starting their running journey, what is your advice to them, kind of to enjoy it and get the best from it rather than feel the pressure of what sometimes can come when you start running, times and other outside influences that can play a part in someone's running training, as it were?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it comes up a lot, because for people who have experienced an illness similar to what you've gone through with long COVID, and you've been at a certain level, it's heartbreaking to then go again and realise you can't do what you did before. And
a lot of people come back from injury or illness, and they almost expect to be at the level they're at, and they spend a long time beating themselves up because they're not at the level they were at. So I'm keen to hear more about how you tackle this.
Yeah, it is a big issue, isn't it, for a lot of us? Even if you take a week off, it can feel similar to that. My best methods that seem to work quite well is really spending time like going through the goal setting stage. So exactly what is it that you want? When do you want to get there by? But it's a lot about checking to see whether they think it is actually possible. Because a lot of the time when you talk things through, you realise, and the way that you could ask them, do you really think that is something that you can do by this time? Quite often then you'll get someone, they'll be honest about it and go, well, actually, probably not. So you kind of go through the process of working out the end goal, but then breaking it right down into smaller sections and by when. And thinking about this is quite interesting, because it's just made me think about another situation about how actually happened for me, how I ended up doing the 100 mile at the 24 hours. I wanted to do 100 mile in 24 hours at the time. And that all came from a blind coaching session that I attended as part of a training session. And it was literally 20 minutes of questions, and nobody knew what anybody were working on. It was all done in private. And the facilitator asked the questions, and I decided that I was going to work on whether I thought it were possible or not to do 100 miles. Bearing in mind, I'd never even done more than a marathon at that point. And I just thought, it's a blind coaching session. I've nothing to lose. It's something that I really want. It was so difficult doing the marathon. I'm always in pain. So this is, I suppose, an example of, because I've not got first-hand experience of gone from being at a level and then being injured, because I was injured before I started running. But how I can compare the two is me going from doing a marathon in my health at the time, suffering from chronic pain, chronic migraine, and recovering from hernia and all these things, to then upping it up to 100 mile in 24 hours, because everyone laughed at me. Like, they're all like, nah, do you even think that is even possible? Even my own husband, even my own children, even my own family, they didn't believe that it were possible for me. So this is a good example of how we could relate the two, the best that I can come up with at the minute. And it was literally me answering the questions in the blind coaching session, which were, what exactly do you want to achieve? By when do you want to achieve it? Who do you need to involve to achieve it? These are just some examples of the type of questions that might be on there. On a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you believe that this is possible for you? What resources might you need? What might you need to help you get? So lots of questions. And by the end of it, I was fueled up. I was signing up for Endure 24 at Leeds. And I did not know what came over me. The power of the thinking.
Which year did you do Endure Leeds? Which year was it?
2022.
Was that the year of the storms?
Oh, that was the year after the storms.
It was dark. They 21.
Sent me this lovely trophy. I couldn't believe when they sent me this lovely trophy with a third place solo female.
Just for the listeners, Joey's showing us her third place trophy. Amazing, absolutely amazing.
I couldn't believe it. I've never had a trophy. Like, I don't remember the last time I had a trophy, so I was really pleased with that.
Just for context as well. Sorry to keep going back to this is the physiological coach in me, trying to get physiological adaptations and things. So, I think it's, again, it's that dark art of, the mindset side of it that I think a lot of coaches haven't quite sussed out yet, because we can't see it and feel it, and, it's not tangible enough for it. But there's some awesome growing evidence around mindset, and there's some fantastic resources out there and studies for people to read. And I'll actually put a couple of resources in the show notes for people to have a look at. But alongside all of these, the goal setting techniques that you use and the coaching techniques in terms of that mindset coaching, what running training did you do alongside all of that? There must have been some physiological, getting out there and getting the miles in on the road. So what did you do to train for endure?
I did meet halfway. So in all honesty, at the time, I'd been doing, so I'm just trying to think back to when I signed up for it, because my dad had cancer and he was really unwell. And
I can relate to that with my the family situation.
We've all got real similar connections, haven't we? It's we've all got really similar stories. It's nice to meet other people that have gone through similar, and we can help each other. That's the joy of that's another thing that really brings me into this environment, because I've met so many amazing people along the journeys. And
ultra runners, we all come with some sort of baggage.
Yeah. So so you asked me about the type of training that I did. So this is probably a little bit random, but this is me. So the thought of running massive miles every week is just not good for me. I'm not a massive high mileage runner. When I look back on my Garmin, I'd average between, 20, 25 miles per week maximum. I'd never do more than that, like ever. So at the time when I was building up, I know I can run 11 miles on my own. That's the furthest I'll do. Like mentally, I'm too bored on my own. Because I'm trying to think back why I was doing that on my own. Oh, that was going back into COVID. When we weren't at one point, we weren't allowed to run with other people. Yeah. And I'd signed up to a 40 mile. That was going to be my next step up, from the marathon distance.
Mm-hmm.
But it got cancelled because of COVID. But what I decided to do was, because it was lockdown, I thought, every week, I'm just going to do this route that was 11 mile. I thought I can do that once a week. That's achievable. And I set myself a goal for it, went through the process of coaching myself. And then I decided I can do it at 1 5K as well. So I thought, I can handle that. 1 5K run and 1 11 mile run. And I did that every week. And then it got cancelled, did this 40 mile ultra that was going to be the first one. And then we were allowed to meet in groups of 2 again. So I said to the person that I was running with, shall we just go do it? Let's just go do the route. Let's just go for it. And so that was my training. So I did other stuff. I did like maybe a daily HIIT workout of about 15 minutes as well. Then I became obsessed with hula hoop spinning.
I saw on your Facebook feed yesterday the hula hoop thing with your GoPro going live. Tell us a bit about the hula hooping.
Yeah, I'm new to the GoPro and the live streaming, and I had at the time it shared it to everybody, which is fine. At least you guys got to see it.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be for my private group, but I think everybody got to see it, and I was surprised about how many viewers, which was good. Maybe I can share the love of hula hooping. Yeah, so again in lockdown, just because we're bored, we're in the garden, found a couple of hula hoops in the garage, started spinning around my waist, and I realised how much I love hula hooping. And when I was a child, I used to love hula hooping and spinning. I never really did anything else with it apart from spin it around my waist. But in lockdown, I just thought I'm going to go online and look up what else I can do and do some more different moves with it, like arms and legs and different things. So I just got really into hula hooping. And again, then I realised that it was really benefiting me. Just with
I was going to say you must be particularly given what you've been through since the car crash, and I guess that would have thrown up plenty of mobility issues and things. The whole action of the hula hoop is like take away the hula hoop, and you've got a classic pre-run warm up with the with the swinging of the hips, the hoop, the hip circles. That is a classic running warm up. So I can only imagine that all the hula hooping you do is actually giving you some really good mobility.
Yeah, I set my Garmin going. I was like, wow, my heart rate's going higher than when I'm running. And so I thought, actually, and I think that was part of the plan, where I realised that if I can do this at times when I'm not able to run and I don't want to go out running, and I really don't want to be doing a 20-mile training run or any further. So I literally just did so much hula hooping, like quite often, every day hula hooping. And with them mixtures, then we managed to achieve that 40 mile to begin with. It wasn't an official race, it was just us turning up and doing the room. And that was I think in the July time. And it wasn't until the following May when I decided that I was going to do the 100 mile at Endure. I then thought, oh, well, I probably need to run more than, because I'd only done that 40 miles one off and then not done any longer distance since then. It was always around about an 11 mile. That just seemed to be the number that I stuck with. And sometimes half a marathon, but never more than that. And then when I'd gone through this blind coaching session and decided that I was going to go for it and do the 100, that was around about January time. So I then thought, oh, I best find something to sign up for, because I can't really go from that to 100 mile. So I decided I needed to do a 50 mile. So that's where the Pennine Barrier came in. And again, when I was training for the Pennine Barrier, I just stuck with that for a few months before doing that long, once a week, 11-mile run. And then getting closer to the time, I decided Yorkshire Three Peaks. If I could go do the Yorkshire Three Peaks, and that would give me confidence. So that's what I did. And then on the Pennine Barrier, on the day of the Pennine Barrier, I just had loads of confidence. Like, I don't never sign up to something I don't believe. If I don't believe I can do it, then I'm not going to do it. It's like what they say with your thinking. It's all about your thinking.
Yeah. I say all the time, you've got to have a strong enough why, particularly with ultra marathons, because when you're 40 miles into a 50 miler and your legs are screaming at you, you're knackered, you're puking because you haven't taken enough fuel on or hydrated well enough, and you are asking yourself, why the hell am I doing this? If you can't answer that question with a strong enough answer to yourself, then you're probably going to drop out of the race. And I've been there. I've done that before. It. So yeah, I don't sign up for anything anymore that my why isn't strong enough.
That's it. Yeah, exactly the same. And you just said that at the perfect time, because what happened was, partway through the Pennine Barrier, we got down the bottom of Pen again, and I could hear someone running right near me, and we just like got chatting. And his name's Gary Smith. I think people thought we were a married couple, and we just got chatting. We both had something real similar in common with our dads. My dad had just died, and Gary's dad was really unwell and at the end of life. And we started running together, and we were chatting. And then it wasn't that long after, and he said to me, I'm so glad I met you when I did. He said, because I was just about to drop out. And I was like, oh, really? No way. What? And we just ran the whole rest of the route together. We finished together.
That's the beauty of the ultramarathon world. We're all in it together. And I've made some great friends through ultramarathons. I'm sure plenty of people who are listening will be able to relate to the time where they were in a certain situation on a certain race, and somebody dragged them out of the pit that they were in, just through the community side of ultra running. So yeah, totally relate to that. I was going to say, just going back to what you were saying about your training for Endure 24, and a whole part of mine and Faye's coaching philosophy. We don't coach elite athletes who run for a living. We coach people who have jobs, kids, stuff going on in their lives that means they can't do crazy hours per week of running. And all of the science says more volume is better, blah blah blah. But like I say all the time, sometimes the science can go fuck itself, because sometimes the science has been derived from studies on 25-year-old male elite athletes, and that doesn't apply to everybody. So we've got to make the best use of our time. So it's great to just sort of, again, illustrate the fact that people can achieve these amazing feats. And actually, it's quite interesting you got to 100 miles at Endure 24 on the volume of running that you were doing, because I coached somebody to 100 miles at Endure 24 in Leeds in the same year, last year, on three runs a week. So it's possible, folks. It is possible.
Yeah, it is. And I beat my time, because I aimed for 24 hours and I did it in 22.43. So I did it quicker than I thought. I could have gone for longer, but I chose to hula hoop instead. So yeah, took the hula hoop.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. And then
cool down.
I just went along a little with the hula hoop. But yeah, honestly, and since then, I then went on to do Jurassic Coastline, 76 miles with my brother, who had never done a marathon before. And he just did the distance. He is a superhuman. And then went on to do Lady Anne Way, and then did the Chester 100 Ultra with Gary, who I met on Pennine Barrier that day. His wife insisted on having my mobile number. She said, and we're not going till we get your number. And
the power of the ultra marathon world, it brings us together.
Yeah. The power of the thinking process revealed itself at the Chester 100 mile ultra with Gary, because at mile 25, I was chatting with another person for a little while. And then by the time Anna thought he's getting quiet. And then when I asked him, he's like, I'm not doing this, I'm dropping out. And I'm like, you're dropping out? We've got a plan. And we did the strategies, went through what we did, the plan, and changed it around using helpful thinking process and positive affirmations and some kind of all kinds of different techniques. And he never looked back after that. Once he got going, he didn't look back. It was miraculous, because I never believed him when he said he dropped out, because I'd never seen it happen before.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, to kind of wrap things up, I'm coming away from this because I've got a couple of athletes who, like I said, they've got some of those little nuances that, when they're racing, they're in their mind, they're telling themselves something that they shouldn't be telling. There's a doubts creeping in, or whatever it might be. And I think, certainly around the goal setting and visual affirmations, visualizing, how do you want the race to go, I think is so powerful. And actually, there are great studies and resources out there that do confirm this. And the elite athletes do it. They do go through visualization techniques with their mindset coaches, with their sports psychologists. And I think there's a lot of people out there that might be listening to this, and the kind of people that we work with, your parents, your busy professionals who want to do well in their races, could take away some great things from this conversation and from those types of methods to help improve their running. So I've certainly learned a lot today, and it's been amazing to meet you, Jo. So thank you so much for coming on the Maximum Mileage podcast.
Thank you, Jo.
Thank you to both of you too. It's been great to meet you all. Hopefully we'll meet again soon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll stay in touch. Thank you so much, Jo. And that is another episode on the Maximum Mileage Running podcast. Thank you very much. And that's another lap done on the Maximum Mileage Running podcast. Thank you for joining me and my athletes and my guests on this wild ride through the world of ultra, road and trail running. And remember, whether it's a mountain trail or the local road, every mile you conquer makes you stronger. Keep pushing, keep laughing, and of course, keep swearing when that hill just seems a little too steep. If you enjoyed today's journey, don't forget to subscribe and leave me a nice review, please. Your feedback does help me go that extra mile. Until next time, this is your host, Nick Hancock, reminding you to make every mile count. Run long, run strong, and run with maximum mileage. Catch you on the next run. And that's another lap done on the Maximum Mileage Running podcast. Thank you for joining me and my athletes and my guests on this wild ride through the world of ultra, road and trail running. And remember, whether it's a mountain trail or the local road, every mile you conquer makes you stronger. Keep pushing, keep laughing, and of course, keep swearing when that hill just seems a little too steep. If you enjoyed today's journey, don't forget to subscribe and leave me a nice review, please. Your feedback does help me go that extra mile. Until next time, this is your host, Nick Hancock, reminding you to make every mile count. Run long, run strong, and run with maximum mileage. Catch you on the next run.